Hello, everyone. My name is Brittany King, and I'm a writer and marketing communication strategist. And for the last decade, I have had the pleasure of working with local newsrooms, nonprofits, higher education institutions, and even a few beverage and snack companies on their marketing and communication materials. And I'm so excited to bring all of that expertise together for this presentation and in this space, the 2025 Cent Seminar. So today we're going to be talking about beyond the buzzwords, diversity, equity, and inclusion in everyday marketing. So by the end of this presentation, you will have practical ways to make your marketing reflect the people you serve currently or those that you're trying to reach. And I should say right up top, this is not about checking a box. It's about integrity, authenticity, and impact. If you're watching this, this is likely not about checking a box for you either. It's about making sure that maybe your internal personal values or your organization's values are lived out through every piece of content that you create and post online or in printed materials. And so we're going to talk about how you can do that. In the next 20 minutes or so, we will cover three main areas: internal alignment and intentionality, representation and visuals and language, and finally, learning from your audience. But first, let's talk about why this even matters. Why are we talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion? It's not because it's a buzzword right now. It's not because of anything happening politically or socially. It's because it's more than a trend, it's a commitment. If you're watching this, if you are even thinking about what it means to have diverse and inclusive language and visuals in your end products and your marketing products and campaigns, you understand that it's a commitment that goes much beyond a trend and is something that you want to live both within your organization, likely within yourself, and you want it reflected in your marketing content. Second of all, it's important to remember that marketing reflects your values. Think about a website, think about Instagram or even your LinkedIn if you're maybe you're building your personal brand. That's kind of the first thing a potential client or customer or audience member sees before they even really get to talk to someone from your organization. Even in something like an event marketing space, like a conference, they're going to see, the big sandwich boards or the big banner that you have hanging up, maybe some of your swag that's on the table before anyone ever greets them. And so your marketing reflects your values and tells a story before you, as a brand representative or a person at an organization, can ever tell a potential client what your story actually is. And then the last thing I want to center us on before I start is that tokenism and diversity are not the same. Often I am working with clients who, maybe they have a program where they really want to attract a certain community, a certain group of people, and they're like, well, we put these people in our marketing materials. We made sure they were represented in these different ways on our Zoom calls or like our call out meetings about this, but it didn't really lead to anything. And that's because just because someone is visibly represented does not mean that they are actively and intentionally included or that the inclusion of them is equitable and accessible. And so we're going to talk about how to kind of avoid that tokenism, looking like you're diverse, and actually instead being diverse, being intentional, being inclusive. So the first place to always start is internally. Do an internal check-in as a marketing team, as a larger organization, if that feels appropriate, especially if you're talking about something large like a big rebrand for your organization or something like that. And just ask these questions. Is your organization diverse? Is the marketing team that works on your campaigns and materials diverse? Maybe you outsource all of your marketing. Is the ad agency that you work with or the different contractors or subcontractors that you work with come from diverse backgrounds? Marketing does not exist in a vacuum. It reflects your organization. If you are a team of one, that's okay. This applies to you, but maybe a little bit differently. You can still kind of look around at your community. Who are you connected with professionally? Is there budget to hire a sensitivity reader or reviewer as you're creating content or a program? Can you lean on your broader network that your organization is connected to or that you're personally connected to help you in this check-in of sorts? Regardless of what route you go, you want to ask these questions, you want to have a plan, and you want to understand your why. That's what being intentional looks like. So let's say the goal is to have all of your marketing and communications materials reflect a more diverse workforce that you actually have internally. You want to start with, so that's the goal, right? You want to start with why are we doing this though? Like, what is our why? Have we gotten feedback from our community that we need to be more diverse? Do we want, again, our content to reflect the people that work inside of our organization and also reflect the people we serve on the outside of our organization? Or was this a direction from leadership? Was it kind of like a top-down initiative that's happening? No matter what the answer is, or no matter what question you're asking to get to understand the why behind it, it is important to know your why because it gives you a starting point. It gives you a solid foundation and it makes sure everyone's on the same page for why we are creating content in this way that is intentional, represents diverse people, perspectives, body types, etc., and uses inclusive language. Next, you want to make sure that your marketing materials are aligned with your mission, your vision, your values. Are any parts of diversity, equity, or inclusion woven into your core values already? Are they a part of your mission, your vision, your purpose statement? I always tell organizations to lean into who they truly are because your audience can sense that even digitally through a computer, through social media. Chances are, if the rest of your organization doesn't quite live out your equity and inclusion goals, that your marketing team cannot do it on their own. Authentic marketing starts from within. And if these pieces are part of your core values, your mission, what you're driven to do every day in your organization's work, that will come through somewhat naturally in your marketing. But if you start this process and find that parts of your organization don't lean into living out values of diversity, equity, and inclusion, maybe as much as you hope or want to represent in your marketing materials, it might be difficult to make your marketing materials confidently communicate that because people are so smart and savvy nowadays, they can sense anything that feels forced or fake or inauthentic. Now let's talk about what our content looks like. So I'm not going to give a lot of like specific, like use this tool to edit, use this to create. That's not really what this is about, but I want to talk about visual representation and language use just a little bit. So when we're considering visual representation, you want to ask the question of who's showing up in your visual materials. Who's depicted on your website, in your social posts, in your email newsletters? And maybe you are on a team. This is again for maybe my smaller marketing teams or my marketing teams of one. Maybe you're on a team that doesn't have a huge budget for like taking photos at an event or hiring a professional photographer or videographer or things like that. Maybe all you have is your smartphone to take photos, or maybe you don't even have that because you weren't able to cover an event. That's okay. If you have not heard it from a marketer, let me be the first to tell you that stock imagery, despite popular belief, can be inclusive. It takes a bit more work on the upfront. It takes a bit more intentionality and sometimes both a time or monetary investment, but it's possible. When it comes to getting images that maybe you don't readily have or can't readily take on your own, Unsplash is great as a free option. They also have a paid option. And for paid options beyond Unsplash, Tonal and Envato are also great. I would say that the libraries of Tonal and Envato are much wider and even more diverse than Unsplash if you're able to make that type of investment. But I use all three of these resources probably on a weekly basis, at the very least on a monthly basis. And not only is the quality good from all three, but they each use creatives, photographers, videographers who come from diverse backgrounds of all ages, races, ethnicities, and religions. And what's great about that is these are often creatives who are naturally just photographing their community or communities that they're a part of, and then uploading that content to be used by brands and organizations like you. So not only are you getting great high quality photos or video that you can use as stock, but you're also knowing that this was taken by people who didn't kind of swoop in just to get photos of, a group of Black people, but instead were perhaps part of the community or at least were intentionally photographed or videoed with the intent of spreading more options for diverse stock imaging. And it's also good to remember that diversity does not just include race. You want to look for diverse bodies, ages, races, genders, identities. All of that is great. I love to use, from a big brand perspective, I love to use Peloton as an example. Their instructors are the face of their brand. Their branding really is their instructors. And this isn't going to be every single org that is like this, but there are organizations, maybe yours, where the people kind of do make the organization. And if you look at Peloton, there are people of different ages. Their instructors are all different ages, races, geographically, they're located all over the world, different body sizes, even different types of mobility. Some use prosthetic arms or legs. It's really, I think they do a great job at kind of communicating that their platform and working out and moving your body using their platform is truly for every type of body. So if you want an example of what that looks like, I think Peloton's a great one to start with. Now let's talk about language. And before we get too into it, I want to say up top that language can always often feel like a moving target because culture moves so fast, especially with social media nowadays, and language is always evolving. What's inclusive to one person may not be inclusive to another. For example, I prefer to be referred to as a Black woman. I prefer the term Black over African American. It's simply a personal preference. It's not wrong to necessarily call me an African American, nor is it wrong to call me Black. It's just I prefer Black. When you're working directly with a community, I always suggest to directly ask that community, how would you like to be referred to? What pronouns would you like me to use? What words or phrases would you like me to avoid even? I think that is very important, especially when you're creating more personal pieces, marketing pieces around a group of people, whether it's like a video or interview series or something of that nature. You just want to be maybe more mindful than you normally would about how you identify these people, this group of people, and how they want to be identified. Similarly, I tend to personally shy away from blanket phrases like people of color or women of color, especially when I mean a very specific racial group or a very specific ethnic identity, because those larger phrases, when the specificity is important for the marketing content, tends to erase the very community that we're trying to promote. So consider the context, consider the content that you're creating, what you're doing, maybe what program you're promoting, and if it makes sense to be super specific, like Black teens in the Southeast, or a little more broad, like teens of diverse backgrounds in the Southeast. It just depends on what your target audience is, what's important, and who you're trying to communicate and target. But the bottom line here is to know your audience. Know your audience, know how they identify, know how they want to be seen. And you can always lean on things like past surveys, donor databases, email databases, and even staff insights to help determine some of this. In the case that you are completely unsure, you know you want to target a certain community, but you're unsure of, you know, how they refer to themselves or if it's appropriate for you as an organization to use a certain term or word. I think some are more obvious than others. I always like to lean on AP style I have journalism roots. I have journalist roots, and I'm a journalist by trade. So that is kind of the resource that I go to, the AP style guidebook. I have a subscription because it lets me know that, in a New York Times article or an NPR piece, like this is the way a group of religious Black Southerners are going to be referred to, or this is the way, the queer community in this particular area is going to be referred to. So that's always an option. Again, it is not by any means the perfect option or the only option, but I did want to offer it and mention it here because it's often where I find myself going when I'm completely stumped on what type of language to use or how to put something. But I think your best bet is always, especially when you're directly reporting on, covering, publishing, marketing content about a specific community, your best bet is to ask that community directly. And this is just another reminder that inclusive language, once again, is not just about race. A lot of my examples use race, but it includes sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, religion, and other things. And then finally, I want to encourage you as you're trying to make your marketing materials more equitable, diverse, and inclusive to learn from your audience. Who are your people? You don't always need a formal focus group. That can be time consuming and expensive. Sometimes it's perfect to just start with your existing community. Think about who's always engaging with your content on social media, who's liking, commenting, and sharing, who's giving you email feedback after you send, that monthly newsletter every month or every quarter. Who are your regular donors? Where do they live? How do they identify? Who are the audience members, whether digital or in person, who are always ready and excited to give you direct feedback? These are great people to start with, to lean on, and to glean from. And when you're speaking to these people, you want to ask questions like who they are, how they found you, what keeps them engaged, what do they find is missing from your content. This is both a great opportunity for constructive feedback and also an opportunity to understand and learn some things that maybe you hadn't considered in your content. And once again, inclusion here is more than race. So we want to be thinking beyond just a racial lens. So let's recap. Marketing that is equitable, inclusive, and diverse is not one size fits all. There is not one way to do it, and perfection is never the goal, ever. It takes honest self-reflection and also organization-wide reflection, both as a marketing team and staff, and even as a larger staff. You want to make sure that your marketing is aligned with your organization's values, mission, and purpose. You want to make sure that your visuals and linguistic language that you're using is used intentionally because it shapes perception. And you want to listen closely to those that you serve. And remember, perfection is not the goal here. Once again, you just have to be committed. You have to be willing to try. And in marketing, you have to be willing to make some mistakes. And that's okay. Stay the course. Thank you so much for your time. If you are in need of marketing support, if you don't know where to start, if this gave you a bunch of ideas or you have additional questions, I am happy to answer them. That is my work email that you can send me a message and I will get back to you. Additionally, if you are looking for marketing support, I am a copywriter and a social strategist, and I would love to see how we could work together if that's something that you're interested in. My portfolio is listed there under my website, and I look forward to hearing from you.